In this video, we're going to talk about the first two snapshots for our RSS reader application. Now, from our discussion in the previous video, we talked about this use of snapshots, that each snapshot represents about an hour or two worth of development time, and we're just going to take the highlights and kind of overview what we did in each of the snapshots. These snapshots are available for you to download and to load up into your own version of Visual Basic 2005 Express Edition so that you can follow along or you can try to implement the things that we're doing here on your own. So in this first snapshot, in the first hour or two, what I wanted to do was just add the necessary files to our application to get started. So you can see that I renamed Form 1 and called it Main Form. And this is where I did the majority of my work. This main form, as I drew it out on my whiteboard or on a sheet of paper and passed it along to a number of friends, is directly from the design that I created. So you can see that it has all the usual accoutrements of a Windows application, including a menu system at the very top, which is fairly simple. We only have File and Help for now. And in future iterations, we'll probably expand this out to include some more functionality. We have a toolbar that has a number of buttons that give us the functionality for our application, including the ability to create, edit, and delete folders, the ability to create, edit, and delete channels, and then finally the ability to refresh the RSS feeds. And if you want to use these icons in your application, I've included these within the zip file for your use. The zip file that contains the snapshot for the code. So as you can see, I have a number of things here, and let's talk through what I did. First of all, I used from the toolbox the toolstrip container control, and what this allows you to do is create a series of panels where you can drag and move around the toolstrip. And so this makes it very flexible for your users of your application to adjust the application the way that they want to. So this gives you the functionality of, as you can see, there's a little handle here. I can click the up or the down caret in order to make a section. So when my user uses the application, I'm just going to run this and won't really do a whole lot. They can now grab this toolbar and dock it against the left or dock it against the right or dock it against the bottom of the application. And so this eases potentially the use of the application the way that they want to. I can pull it above the menu bar or in its default spot below it. So that's the purpose of the toolstrip container. To the toolstrip container, I added a menu control or menu strip. As you can see here, it's represented in the design tray, and then also a toolstrip control, and finally at the very bottom a status strip. Let's go through these one by one. First of all, on the menu strip, what I did was right-click the default menu strip and selected Insert Standard Items. What this will do is create your standard File, Edit, View, Window, and Help entries, and from there I basically just deleted the ones I didn't need and left the ones I did need. And then I went in and started adding some of the ones that I wanted. For example, the ability to create a new folder or a new channel. I could simply type in a given menu in order to create new entries for my menu at a high level, as you can see here, or in each of the individual submenus. Also, from the Properties menu, I can select Items, the Items collection, and define more information about each of the individual high-level items. For in this case, we have two, File and Help, and each of these have their own series of item collections. See where that's at here. Drop-down items, which brings up another item collection editor. So we can see within the toolstrip drop-down menu, I have a new toolstrip menu item for new and a new exit toolstrip menu item. And you can see even underneath this, I can go on and look at more drop-down items. So here I have a new folder and a new channel item. Okay, so you can see just this cascading ability to look at the items that are contained within other menu items and so on, and edit their properties, add little little icons to the left-hand side, change the properties of things that happen when you click on them, and so forth. And then what I did was basically click on each of the ones I wanted to modify, and so you can see here I just stubbed out this click event for the new folder tool strip menu item and other menu items and toolbar items, and just said this will create a new folder. So if somebody clicks on this, or if I'm clicking on it while I'm testing it, I can remind myself, oh, I haven't implemented this fully yet. Okay, let's go back to our form here. We talked about the menu strip. So now let's talk about the toolbar strip, and it works in a very similar manner. So what I did for each of the items here, when you select it, I can create an add a tool strip button by simply clicking it, or I can add any number of items like a separator or a combo box, text box, a progress bar right inside of my tool strip. That's pretty cool. Now I've elected to use the most simple type of item for a tool strip, and that is the button. And on each of the individual buttons, I right-clicked and selected Set Image, which gave me this little Select Resource dialog. And here I selected Import and found the icon on my file system that I wanted for that particular thing, and then basically click the OK button, and then it brought it into and saved it as part of my tool strip. Again, by double-clicking any of the individual items, I was able to stub out and provide a little to-do message for myself, so that I remember to more fully implement this in the future. At this point, I really didn't want to get too bogged down in any individual feature. I just wanted to start laying out things and stubbing things out to remind myself the future. So I'm using a very structured process, at least in my own mind, of how I'm going about developing this application. The very bottom of the form, we have a status strip rather, and the status strip has two pieces. First of all, it has a progress bar, but there's also something that you can't see here, which is a label, which is off to the right of the progress bar, and the label will allow me to provide some feedback to the end user as to the success or the failure of the operations that they'll undertake with my application. And we'll use the progress bar in order to update the user on the progress of grabbing down the information from the internet, the RSS feeds. Since that operation can take a long time, we want to give the user some visual feedback that the application hasn't stopped working, it's just still chugging along, grabbing down information and parsing it from the internet. Okay, now on to the main area. You can see here in the main gray area that we have a series of controls on the left-hand side, and this will allow us to first of all select a given folder in a drop-down list box. For the folders, we're going to display the channels that are associated with them, and by selecting a channel, we want to display the given news item. That's the news items that have been retrieved for a given channel. By selecting a news item, then we're going to display the news item's full title, its description, the date it was collected or posted, and then we're going to actually go to the URL or the link and display that in a control. The control that we're using here, I think we can find it in the toolbox, is a web. Let's see where this is at here. Okay, the web browser control. And this allows you to basically, as it says here, to browse web pages from inside the form. So they can see a little bit of an example of the page. They'd be able to scroll around in it since it is a fairly small window. Or they can click this little expand link here, which will pop it open in Internet Explorer in a more full screen type view. So here I've just used a common label, and I've set the fore color to blue and have added an underline to it as well. So if we look in the font properties, I've set underline equal to true for this, and it gives it this hyperlink type of look. I could have used the hyperlink control, but it's a little bit easier just to use the click event and then fire off the things that I want to do with it. Since the hyperlink control didn't exactly work the way I wanted it to when I did a few little tests on my own, I just preferred this method. So the other thing that I did was that I named everything consistently. So even the individual items within my the individual mail, or I'm sorry, the menu items, I renamed those. I named the individual boxes that are throughout the form. And I take a lot of time to do this because the more consistently that I name things, up front, I can then find things that I'm looking for later on in the development process. So I take great care to name things, and it also helps whenever you're looking at my code to see, why is he talking about text box 3? He should be talking about the description text box, for example. So I really do it for myself to make it more obvious to me later on, several days from now, when I'm looking at my code again, what it is that I'm trying to accomplish with each of the objects on screen, and then also in code as I reference these individual objects. What is it that I'm doing there? So good naming conventions will help you and will help other people that look at your code in the future as well. Then the next thing that I did was I set the tab order. So you can see here, if we scroll down, that I set the tab index to 0 for folder. You can see that as I select the channel list box, that I set the tab index to 1. And there's a number of ways that I can do that. I can use the property window in order to set the tab index, or if I go to the view menu and select tab order, I get this little visual system that allows me to click on the next item and very quickly run through all of the items that I want to allow the user to tab through. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that for now. But as you can see, I got that set up as well so that the application automatically starts with a cursor in the folder menu, so it allows me to use the keyboard only controls to select a given folder, and then using the tab button you can see the caret changes from channels to news items to title to description to date posted to the web control, and then back, if I do it one more time, to the folder. Now additionally, I have added 2 files that'll allow me to add and edit the folders and the channels. So I'm going to, basically the workflow will go like this. If I want to add a new folder, the user will click the Add New Folder button, or if he wants to edit the existing folder that's been selected, he can select the Edit Folder button from the toolbar. Same thing is true for channels. If they want to add a new channel to the folder, they can select the Add Channel or the Edit Channel. So that'll pop open 2 little, what I'm calling dialog boxes. They're simply forms that I've named as dialogues, nothing fancy. So let's take a look at the folder dialog, or the folder form first. I simply have the ability to specify a name and then click the OK button. So if you're adding a new folder dialog, my plan is to, by default, not allow you to edit an ID. It'll just be assigned the ID of 0. You type in a name, you click the OK button, and it will insert a new folder dialog, or folder rather, into our database. Or if you click the Edit button, then it'll bring up the folder ID, so maybe like folder 37, and then allow you to edit the folder name and click OK, and it will save that. Or by clicking Cancel, it will negate any of the changes before they're made and bring you back to the main form. The same thing is true for the channel dialog, which allows you to select a folder. So we're going to need to grab a list of all the available folders, and we're going to default to the one that was selected whenever you click. So if you click like select folder World News, for example, then when we click the add channel to the folder, then we want to be able to display that as well in by default into our folder drop-down selection area. Then again, we're going to allow the user to enter the title and then paste in a URL and then click OK. If they were to get here by editing, then that information would be pre-populated, including the channel ID, in which case they could change the title and the URL and click OK, and it would be saved into the database, or then click the cancel button, and that would be negating any of the changes that they made. Now at this point it seems like we haven't really done a whole lot of real work. We've just been laying out controls, but this is time consuming, and trying to get things to line up just exactly right using our toolbar, or the little visual tools that the layout tools, as you can see, the pink and the blue lines and the gray lines that appear throughout the form as we're moving something around to help us to line things up exactly. That's a time consuming process, so you don't want to forget that that attention to detail will take a little bit of time out of your project schedule. Okay, so that pretty much is the gist of our first snapshot for the project. And now we're going to move on to snapshot 2. So about 45 minutes or an hour later, I have completed snapshot 2. Basically, the only improvement that I made in the last between the two snapshots is that I added some code to open and close the channel dialog and the folder dialog from our main form. So again, not a large improvement, but it's something that we need to do in order to prepare for the functionality that's about to follow. There were a number of ways that I could go about doing this, and I wanted to take the easiest approach for now. And if that works for me, great. If not, then I can start over and try to improve that functionality. But as you can see, I'm going to double click on the folder add tool strip button, click event, and you can see what I've done here. I've first of all created a new instance of the folder dialog, calling it F. It's probably not the best name I could have given it, and probably will improve that in another snapshot. Then what I've done is created a new variable called result of type dialog result. So it's at this point that I'm going to need to explain my strategy. Let's open up the folder dialog and talk about a special property that we can add to a given form's buttons, and that is the use of the dialog result property. So for a given button, as you can see here, I've defined this from its default and set it to OK, and the cancel button, we've selected the dialog result of cancel. So whenever somebody clicks on either OK or cancel, it will close the entire form because we've designated these buttons as dialog result type buttons by setting their property, and it will bring us back to our main form. And what we can do is track which button the user clicked through the use of this dialog result that'll be returned from us. So as you can see here in line number 9, I have result equals f.showDialog. So we can just choose f.show as an option, but by using f.showDialog instead, we're telling Visual Basic that we intend to receive back a notification on which button was selected in order to close the form. So when the user was finished working with this, what did they click? Did they click OK or cancel? We grab that result and then we test. Did they select dialog.result OK or dialog.result cancel? And based on that, we're going to just, in this case, in this particular snapshot, just stub out what will actually happen. Here we have message box that show the user selected OK or the user selected cancel. And then finally, we will close and set the instance of our form folder dialog equal to nothing. So let's show how this works. So in this case, I'm going to click the Add Folder button. As you can see, it pops open the folder dialog. How did this happen? Remember, is that line of code result equals f.showDialog. So the showDialog method will pop open our instance of our form. Here I can type in anything I want to and then click the OK button. And all that we have working right now is just that the user selected the OK button, or we can select the cancel button instead, and notice that we've tracked now that the user selected the cancel button. So we didn't have to write a whole lot of code in order to enable this displaying and this retrieval of information from the folder dialog. And the same thing is true if we were to go down then to the channel add toolstrip button underscore click, as well as the edit toolstrip button click as well. Here we're doing the exact same thing, where we're just going to track the dialog, what was selected, either the OK or the cancel button. If we look in our Solution Explorer, we can see that the same properties were set for this as well. So dialog result OK, dialog result cancel. Then whenever in our main form somebody clicks the add or the edit button, we're going to use the show dialog method. And then whenever they close the dialog using the OK or cancel button, we'll capture that in a result. We'll test the value of result and display the appropriate message. So let's run that real quick just to demonstrate that it does in fact work. So here we'll click OK, and then we'll click it again and hit cancel instead. and you can see we get user selected cancel. Okay, so our application is starting to come along. We haven't really done anything meaningful yet, which we're going to reserve for the next two snapshots. But you can see that now we have really the foundation set up so that we can start plugging in the functionality and see it start to come to life a little bit.